The Industrial Revolution. Welcome to History Unveiled. The Industrial Revolution stands as a defining era in human history. From the late 18th century into the 19th century, it transformed societies, economies, and industries in ways that continue to resonate today. This narrative unravels the innovations and social changes that marked this extraordinary time, laying the groundwork for the modern industrial age. Before the rise of industry, Europe was a land of farms and handcrafts. The seeds of change were sown by several key developments. The Agricultural Revolution. The Agricultural Revolution was a precursor to industrialization, fundamentally changing the way people worked the land and lived their lives. In previous centuries, farming relied heavily on traditional methods, with tools and techniques that had barely evolved over generations. However, a series of key innovations transformed agriculture into a more productive and efficient system. Technological innovations. The introduction of the seed drill by Jethro Tull in 1701 allowed for precise planting of seeds at regular depths and spacing. This increased germination rates and reduced waste. The development of improved plows and mechanical threshers further reduced manual labor requirements, enabling farmers to manage larger areas of land more effectively. Crop rotation and scientific farming. The adoption of crop rotation methods, particularly the Norfolk four-course system, improved soil fertility and prevented nutrient depletion. This system alternated crops like wheat, barley, clover, and turnips, balancing the soil's demands and increasing yields. Scientific approaches to farming, supported by agricultural societies and publications, encouraged experimentation with fertilizers and selective breeding of livestock. Global agricultural influence. The Agricultural Revolution wasn't confined to Britain. Its practices spread across Europe and North America, setting the stage for increased food production worldwide. This ensured that growing industrial populations were well fed, sustaining the workforce needed for industrialization. Political stability. Britain's political environment in the 18th century provided a solid foundation for industrialization. The absence of internal conflict and revolutionary upheaval, such as those seen in neighboring countries, allowed the focus to remain on economic development and innovation. Stable governance fostered investor confidence, encouraging entrepreneurial ventures and infrastructure projects. Parliamentary systems supported laws that favored private property, contracts, and innovation. Economic opportunity. Britain's banking and financial institutions were well developed, offering loans and credit to burgeoning industries. This capital availability was crucial for funding factories, machines, and transportation networks. Expanding global trade networks ensured a constant demand for British goods. Colonies provided raw materials like cotton and a vast market for finished products, creating a symbiotic relationship that fueled industrial growth. Intellectual climate. The Enlightenment's emphasis on reason and progress created a culture of inquiry and innovation. Britain's universities and scientific societies, such as the Royal Society, became centers for intellectual exchange and experimentation. This era celebrated the power of human ingenuity and fostered collaboration across disciplines. Thinkers like Adam Smith contributed to economic theory, promoting ideas like free markets that aligned with industrial needs. Meanwhile, inventors and engineers were inspired by the intellectual fervor to create practical solutions to pressing challenges. Scientific advancements, such as the study of thermodynamics and materials science, directly supported technological progress. For instance, knowledge of steam mechanics enabled the refinement of engines, while metallurgy advanced construction and manufacturing. The intellectual climate also encouraged public dissemination of ideas. Books, journals, and lectures ensured that knowledge was accessible, empowering individuals to innovate and adapt. social mobility and workforce readiness. While class distinctions persisted, the Industrial Revolution's early stages provided new avenues for upward mobility, particularly for skilled laborers and tradespeople. Factory supervisors, engineers, and successful entrepreneurs could rise above their initial station, creating a burgeoning middle class. Education and apprenticeships offered pathways to skilled professions. Many ambitious individuals leveraged these opportunities to advance socially and economically. Impact of rural displacement. The agricultural revolution's displacement of rural workers created a ready labor force for industrial centers. Many former farmers found employment in factories, mines, and urban industries. Though factory work was often grueling and poorly paid, it provided steady wages and drew millions to growing cities, setting the stage for urbanization and industrial workforce consolidation. Women and children in the workforce. Women and children played a significant role in the industrial workforce, particularly in textiles and small manufacturing. Although often exploited, their labor contributed to household income and broader industrial growth. Over time, the realities of harsh working conditions led to reforms, improving labor rights and opening avenues for women's greater participation in society and education. Riches of the earth. Abundance of natural resources. Britain was richly endowed with natural resources that were essential for industrial growth. Coal became the primary energy source, powering steam engines and furnaces that fueled factories and transportation. Iron ore, another critical resource, was abundant and provided the raw material for tools, machinery, and infrastructure. The development of better smelting techniques, such as the use of coke, significantly improved iron production. Waterways and ports. A vast network of rivers and streams powered early mills and provided an inexpensive means of transporting raw materials and finished goods. Coastal access and ports connected Britain to global trade routes, enabling the import of raw materials and export of manufactured goods. Cities like Liverpool and Bristol became bustling hubs of commerce. Geographical advantages. Britain's relatively small size and dense population allowed for efficient transportation of goods and materials. The proximity of coal mines to industrial centres reduced logistical challenges. The island nation's separation from mainland Europe offered security, ensuring industrial activities were less disrupted by continental conflicts. Renewable resources in the early stages. Before the dominance of coal, water power was harnessed through mills located near rivers. These mills played a crucial role in industries such as textiles, providing a clean and sustainable source of energy in the early phases of industrialization. Resource exploitation and environmental consequences. The rapid extraction and use of natural resources laid the foundation for industrial prosperity, but came at an environmental cost. Coal mining scarred landscapes and polluted waterways, and deforestation to clear land for agriculture and industry disrupted ecosystems. Despite these challenges, the exploitation of Britain's natural wealth enabled it to emerge as a global leader during the Industrial Revolution. Engines of change. The Industrial Revolution's heartbeat was its technological advancements. These innovations redefined productivity and progress. Revolution in textiles. The textile industry was the first to experience groundbreaking changes. The spinning jenny, invented by James Hargreaves, allowed workers to spin multiple spools of thread simultaneously, vastly improving productivity. The water frame, introduced by Richard Arkwright, harnessed water power to drive machinery, setting the stage for factory-based production. The power loom, developed by Edmund Cartwright, automated weaving, transforming textiles into a mechanized industry. These innovations reduced production time and costs, making fabrics more accessible to the general population. Harnessing steam. The steam engine, a cornerstone of industrialization, was revolutionized by James Watt. His design made engines more efficient, enabling their use in industries beyond mining. Steam power drove factory machinery, reducing reliance on human and animal labor. It also powered locomotives and ships, connecting cities and continents like never before. This invention symbolized the shift to a mechanized world, where energy was harnessed on an unprecedented scale. Steel, a stronger future. The Bessemer process, pioneered by Henry Bessemer, introduced a method for mass-producing steel by blowing air through molten iron to remove impurities. This innovation made steel stronger, cheaper, and more reliable. Steel became a critical material for building railways, bridges, ships, and skyscrapers, marking a new era in construction and engineering. Transportation revolution. Railroads emerged as vital arteries of commerce and communication. George Stephenson's development of the first steam-powered locomotive revolutionized land transportation, making it faster and more reliable. The creation of extensive canal networks facilitated the movement of heavy goods, while macadamized roads improved overland travel. Steamships revolutionized maritime transport, reducing travel times and enabling international trade on a grand scale. Advancements in energy. The transition from wood to coal as the primary energy source fueled industrial growth. Coal-powered engines and furnaces became ubiquitous in factories, providing a consistent and concentrated source of energy that far surpassed traditional methods. Gas lighting, introduced in urban areas, extended working hours and transformed public spaces. Factories, streets, and homes were illuminated, increasing productivity and enhancing urban life. Advances in steam power complemented these energy developments, with high-pressure steam engines driving machinery and vehicles, making industries more efficient and transportation more reliable. Early experimentation with electricity began laying the groundwork for future energy revolutions. Pioneers like Michael Faraday explored the principles of electromagnetism, setting the stage for the electrification of industries and homes in later decades. Hydropower, though limited in scope compared to coal, continued to be utilized where rivers and streams were accessible. These renewable energy sources supplemented industrial demands, particularly in regions lacking coal resources. Mechanization in agriculture. Mechanization in agriculture dramatically transformed the farming landscape, making it possible to cultivate larger tracts of land with less labor. Machines like the mechanical reaper, invented by Cyrus McCormick, streamlined the harvesting process, significantly reducing the time and effort required to gather crops. Threshing machines, which separated grain from the stalks, further improved efficiency, replacing manual methods that were labor-intensive and slow. Innovations in plowing, including steel plows that could cut through tough soil, opened up previously unusable land for cultivation, contributing to agricultural expansion. Irrigation systems became more advanced, ensuring consistent water supply to crops and mitigating the impact of droughts. These systems increased agricultural output and supported the demands of growing urban populations. Fertilization techniques improved, with the introduction of chemical fertilizers enhancing soil productivity and enabling higher yields. The mechanization of agriculture not only boosted food production, but also freed a significant portion of the rural workforce for employment in industrial sectors. This shift was critical in providing the labor necessary for the burgeoning factories of the Industrial Revolution. The rise of cities. During the Industrial Revolution, the rise of cities was one of the most profound and visible effects of the Industrial Revolution, fundamentally altering the social and physical landscape of nations undergoing industrialization. This era marked a significant shift from agrarian economies to urban industrial hubs, driven by technological advancements, economic incentives, and the movement of people seeking new opportunities. Urban centres swelled as rural populations sought factory jobs. Manchester and Birmingham epitomised the industrial city, buzzing with activity and opportunity. Factory life work shifted from homes to factories, where long hours and grueling conditions were common. Child labour and unsafe environments sparked movements for labour reform, a new social order. The burgeoning middle class thrived on industrial wealth, while the working class faced harsh realities. Social mobility increased, but inequality and exploitation remained stark challenges. Education and advocacy. Literacy and education spread, driven by the needs of an industrial society. Reformers championed labour rights, women's suffrage, and public health improvements. A world rewired. The Industrial Revolution's impact extended beyond its birthplace, shaping global dynamics, imperialism, and trade. Industrial nations expanded their empires, extracting resources and opening markets abroad. Global trade networks deepened interdependence among nations, adoption and competition. The United States, Germany, and Japan rapidly embraced industrial methods, becoming economic powerhouses. Rivalries among industrialized nations spurred innovation and conflict. Competition among nations. As industrialization spread, nations vied for economic dominance, leading to intense rivalries and innovation races. 1. Economic rivalries. The competition for global markets intensified as industrialized nations sought to sell their manufactured goods. This led to trade disputes and protectionist policies aimed at shielding domestic industries. Industrial powers also competed for access to raw materials such as coal, iron, and cotton, which were essential for maintaining industrial output. 2. Technological innovation. The race to innovate became a hallmark of the Industrial Revolution. Countries invested heavily in research and development to gain an edge in sectors like transportation, communications, and weaponry. Examples include the development of steamships, telegraphs, and advanced weaponry, which not only enhanced economic competitiveness but also had significant military implications. Conflict as a byproduct of industrial competition. The competition for industrial supremacy often led to conflicts, both within nations and between them. 1. Colonial expansion. Industrial powers turned to colonialism to secure raw materials and markets. The scramble for Africa in the late 19th century saw European nations carving up the continent to fuel their industrial economies. These colonial rivalries heightened tensions among European powers, contributing to the outbreak of World War I-II, labor unrest, and social conflict. Within industrialized nations, the rapid pace of industrialization created significant social upheaval. Workers faced poor wages, long hours, and unsafe conditions, leading to widespread labor unrest. Movements such as the Luddites in Britain and labor strikes in the United States highlighted the growing divide between industrial capitalists and the working class. 3. Military conflicts. The industrialization of warfare dramatically changed the nature of conflicts. Nations armed with modern weaponry such as rifles, artillery, and steam-powered ships engaged in increasingly destructive wars. The Crimean War, 1853 to 1856, and the Franco-Prussian War, 1870 to 1871, demonstrated how industrialization had transformed military strategy and logistics. Geopolitical shifts. The spread of industrialization reshaped global power dynamics, leading to the rise of new powers and the decline of others. Decline of agrarian empires. Nations that failed to industrialize, such as the Ottoman Empire and Qing China, struggled to compete with industrial powers. Their inability to modernize left them vulnerable to foreign influence and colonization. Rise of industrial powers. Countries like Germany, the United States, and Japan emerged as global powers, challenging Britain's dominance and altering the balance of power. Global alliances and tensions. Industrialization contributed to the formation of alliances among nations, as industrial powers sought to protect their interests. Environmental costs, factories and urban sprawl polluted air, water and land. Dependence on fossil fuels sowed the seeds of modern environmental challenges. Technological foundations. Principles of mass production and mechanization remain vital to industries. Economic evolution. Industrial capitalism emerged as the dominant economic model. Factory systems and wage labor still underpin modern economies. Cultural reflections. The era inspired artistic and intellectual movements, from Romanticism's critique to modernism's embrace of change. Literature, art, and philosophy grappled with the complexities of industrial life. Global interconnectedness. The interconnected economies of today owe much to the trade patterns established during this period. The Industrial Revolution laid the groundwork for globalization. The Industrial Revolution reshaped the world, setting humanity on a path of unparalleled progress and complexity. By exploring its innovations and societal shifts, we gain insight into the roots of modern industry and the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. This remarkable era, with all its triumphs and tribulations, remains a cornerstone of our collective history. Thank you for watching History Unveiled. If you find value in this video, please share, like, and subscribe.